I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's program. I'm sorry, as usual, we had to start late. The panelists came early, but we were waiting for a few more people to join in. And since we still don't have the numbers that we want, but since time is going, we thought we should start. The topic for our discussion this afternoon is creating a conducive ecosystem for creative writing in Ghana. Now, I looked up ecosystem and I pared it down to creating a complex network or an interconnected system which writers will feel comfortable in writing, in applying their trade, implying their trade or their work, like creating the ideal conditions and surroundings in which the Ghanaian writer, in this case, we are concentrating on the Ghanaian writer, can have the peace of mind and the urge to want to write. And we are not only talking about a place, we are talking about an aggregate of social and cultural conditions that influence the writer in Ghana. If they're uncomfortable socially, if they don't know, or even economically, or even politically, I mean, they may not be in that place to write. So we're going to consider the ideal setting, the place, time, circumstances, under which Ghanaian, as I said, we are limiting this to Ghanaian writers can write. And to help us do that, we have three writers, Mariska, Araba, Taylor-Darko, Philomena, Mintah, and Mariam French. I will leave them to introduce themselves when they come. So we've already spent a bit of time, without wasting further time, I call upon Mariska Araba Taylor-Darko to tell us something, to give us her perspective on a conducive ecosystem for creative writing in Ghana. Thank you, Mariska.
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, conducive environment. You know, writers are very funny people, and their creativity comes when they have an environment that is very conducive to them. At the moment, we're divided in our system in Ghana because a lot of people live in family homes and they don't have the right infrastructure to be able to seclude themselves to delve into their writing. Our schools also don't really have proper quiet reading rooms where creative juices can start to flow because it is packed with other students. So we really need to start from the grassroots, that is the JHS level, where there is a room, a quiet room, where one can go and maybe if a class of 20 are spread out within the quiet room in silence, then these juices of being able to create and envisage and all that will be able to be exploited, or, you know. So writers, they say writers don't wait for inspiration, they've got to prepare and plan. But some people need to have a quiet environment, no external disturbances and all that. And that is why a lot of writers here tend to write after 11 p.m. when there's silence outside, when all the family have gone to bed, and then they work until about 3 o'clock. And then have a couple of hours sleep and rush to work. we need something that will inspire our writers in Ghana, you know, and there are different ways one can do it. So for us, the creative ecosystem environment is where humans can be together, but each in their own bubble to explore their creativity, to get the feeling of wanting to write, you know. So that's my little summary of having conducive environment, eco-friendly. You are muted.
You are talking about the setting, you know, the place where a writer can, you know, sit and then write. Is that what you're saying? That's your description of conducive is your understanding of conducive is that a place where the writer can sit down quietly, a quiet place. I kept on hearing the word quiet.
Yeah.
So a personal space where the writer can sit down and then write. Is that it?
Yeah,
okay.
And I mean, because of the difficulty in getting that from your home setting, because of our situation in Ghana, I think that every region should have a writer's village where people can just get up and book for 3-4 days, 2-3 days, where they go away from their homes and sit in a setting with a library, if they need internet, quiet rooms where they can just sit, relax, and then start writing. So it is something that it should go beyond your internal home setting, but we should spread it out to a regional setting where there's something like that, because they say a change is as good as a rest, you know. And when you have so many ideas flowing, but the distractions from around us doesn't allow for development of our creativity.
Hello, moderator.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Mariska has said.
Okay. President, please, a minute. I should have done this. Please hold your thoughts. Don't forget. Don't. I should have introduced myself. I was such a hurry to start. I didn't introduce myself. I didn't allow Mariska to introduce herself. Okay. My name is Ohui Agbenyega Allotey. I'm a retired civil servant. My last place of work was the Ghana Book Development Council. I am an editor by profession, and I love editing all kinds of work, and I obviously love reading, but my preferred choice, if I had this thing, I'd edit children's books all day long and all year long. And I just retired recently from the civil service. Ghana Book Development Council under the Ministry of Education. Mariska, please introduce yourself. I forgot to let you do that.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Mariska Araba Taylor-Darko. I am a writer, an author, published author, organizing secretary for Ghana Association of Writers. I have had other training and work under my sleeve before I came into writing. And I have under the genre of writing for young teens, very small children, and then motivational, and then a couple of nonfiction. I'm also a poet, so I've written a lot of poems that have been part of anthologies. And that's what I do to keep me going. I'm also retired, but when you're in the private sector, individual self-employed sector, you don't really retire. So I've been doing all this for a long time.
Thank you, Mariska. President, please come in. You were just about to talk when I rudely interrupted you. So please continue.
Thank you very much, Ohui. Yeah, I just want to add to what Mariska had said. So the conducive environment we are talking about, or the ecosystem we are talking about, I think it relates to two things. That is the physical environment, which Mariska spoke about and did that so well. That is the writers' retreats, residencies, making sure that you are in a quiet place, the place is appropriate for you to be creative and all that. But we can also see beyond that, where we'll be talking about issues such as, is there a policy, government policy? Is there a policy in this country for, say, a writer's pension, as is in other countries? That is part of a great environment that is that will encourage creative writing. Then also the issue about academic writing and also creative writing. Academic writing tends to have support from the various universities, from governments, than creative writing. So that can also affect what we are referring to as the ecosystem for writing. So if writers don't receive support, as is in the case of those who do academic writing, they will not be as creative that they would have been. So these are some of the things that I would like to also contribute to so that I will have your attention for discussion.
Thank you very much. Anybody else has have anything to contribute? Because apart from the space and the policy and support, sometimes economic considerations, like this morning at the opening ceremony, where the special guest was saying that when he said he wanted to be a writer, his younger sister told him that then he was going to be poor. So what are some of the, what does that imply? If he's writing, why did his sister think he was going to be poor as a writer? I think it's because the sister thought many people don't read. So what's the use of writing? I know a teacher in Canada, a Canadian teacher, who stopped teaching to concentrate on writing. And he's making his living as a writer in Canada. And he's very well off. He's making a very good living. Can we say the same for our writers here? How many of them, creative writers, are making, I'm not talking about academic writers, that's different. I mean, you buy a textbook, the ministry chooses it, and you can go to bed, and go to the bank at the end of every month. But like with the creative writers, these are some of the things that we have to think about, readers. And some people will write because it's in them, they have to write, but other things will impinge on that. The ecosystem, like economics. I mean, I can't sit down and be writing when there's no food on the table. There are bills to pay. So I think we can also consider that.
Mrs. Allotey, can I say something? Mrs. Allotey, yeah. I'm Philomena from Central University.
Okay.
I teach creative writing and I also write, yet I haven't published any of my works yet anyway. One of the major challenges we face in Ghana has to do with recognition. It looks like we tend to see creative writing as a hobby more than a profession. And so those who write are not recognized. They are not I mean, highly respected in the society. And so they don't get their works wet. And I think to make a conducive environment, the ecosystem, we have to work at recognizing the work of the creative writer in the society, because the creative writer plays a key role politically, socially, economically. And until we recognize their role in the society, I think that it's going to continue to affect the way they write. And if you're not even careful, it may kill the industry. So that's what I wanted to add to it.
When you talk about recognizing in terms of, please expand on that, you know,
okay.
Recognizing in terms of, you said something, yeah. But I just want to get it straight.
Okay, recognition in terms of the importance of the creative industry or creative writing in the society.
Okay.
When people, you know, we tend to push creative writing to the, I mean, peripheral, as in, oh, it's a hobby. You can be a lawyer and then do it as an aside thing just to while away time. We don't see it as a profession. They are not well paid. They are not even paid for their work. You write and you must go and look for your own publisher. You must fund it yourself. And society thinks that, I mean, what do you have to offer? So I think that there's a need for us to create an awareness for people to see that key role of the, I mean, creative writer in the society, for the government to recognize it and to give them, as in pay them for the work they do. So that is one way that we can provide a friendly ecosystem for the creative writer in Ghana.
Thank you very much. I just wanted you to bring it out, you know, so that we'll know exactly what you mean by recognition.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I also wanted to add to what she was saying, that our universities don't add creative writing as a serious subject. You know, it is part of, maybe you're in an English class or this, but they don't have creative writing degrees, poetry degrees, and things like that that you find in the rest of the world. You know, so like you said, they treat it as a hobby, your side issue, but really and truly, because when you're on other panels or other groups, international groups, a lot of the people who come on have degrees in creative writing, degrees in this, degrees in poetry, degrees in fiction. You know, what do we have for a writer in our schools? What do we have in our universities? Even from primary level, if you want to write it, people find it it's more or less like a punishment than you actually enjoying it. And then they don't teach them that with writing, you can write adverts for companies, you can write slogans for companies, you can draw up proposals with for how would I put it? Like advertising companies, banks, how would banks advertise their products and all that? Is all creative writing, you know, but we don't value it at all. And we are losing out a lot because there's so much that people can do to earn money, you know, and we need to put a value on the creative work that we do. So.
Yeah. Madam Moderator, can I make a
comment? Please.
I want us to revisit the issue of economics that you mentioned. Now, I see the environment to also include readers, yes.
Yeah.
So if we are writing and we don't have people to do the reading, it doesn't make economic sense.
Yeah.
So as we are discussing these issues, should we also be looking at how we can cultivate readers?
To read,
because the association has attempted in doing that, but with the COVID situation, it's difficult. Is there any alternative? Because when we have the readers, even if you are doing writing as a part-time business, you will still be able to make some income from it. So cultivating readers should be part of what we should be looking at. And also, I would like to announce, it was mentioned today, but I would like to say it over here as well, that GBDC has put together a document, a policy on reading in Ghana. That document has been sent to GAW, it's been sent to other stakeholders. And if any of you remember, we put it on our platforms for people to submit their comments on it, because they ask for our comments. As writers, they are looking for our comments to improve that document. Then it becomes a policy. And that is something that we should be looking at. As I mentioned earlier, cultivating readers will go to support what we write. But that document, unfortunately, for the number of days that we waited for comments, it was only 2 out of about 1,000 members of GAW. Only 2 comments came through. And during the last meeting on that document, we gave ourselves another 2 weeks where we can receive comments. So again, we'll be putting it on a platform for people to submit comments. Then we can improve the document. It becomes a reading policy, which means that as writers, we have a certain leverage. We'll have a policy that we'll be working with in order for us to have, they are more like, or less like our market, our products. People you manufacture and then you need to sell to the market. So when we have readers, we have a market base that will be able to sell our product. The last point I want to make is that it's good that Philomena is here. The point Mariska mentioned, I think Philomena should address it. Teaching creative writing in schools. How is it received? Is it just a case that is part of the courses, therefore people have to choose it? But what do we tell these students about creative writing? What prospects do we sell to them that when they finish, they will be able to venture into? I think those should also engage our minds. Thank you.
Okay.
Philomena.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me respond.
I mean, you are the next. Maybe you are. I was going to call on you next. So maybe you respond and then continue with whatever you have prepared for us today.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself again.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Philomena Mintah from Central University. I am a lecturer there, and I teach Introduction to Creative Writing. I'm in the Department of Communications and Languages. So I am mostly teaching literature courses and then language courses in English. Now, teaching the students creative writing, it's a compulsory course, so they don't have any option, actually. They have to take it. And like you are saying, the institution, not just my institution, but if you realize in Ghana, we don't place much importance on creative writing. You said it yourself. The emphasis is on academic writing and not creative writing. And so it's only when they take the course that they come to realize the importance of creative writing. I tell them all the time that just imagine there's no music, there's no movie, there's no book to read. I mean, you just wake up, you go to work, you come home. I mean, what sort of life will you have? And the students tend to appreciate it, but it all comes down to the money issue. What can I make out of the creative writing? So some of the suggestions my students even make is that perhaps it's high time our creative writers liaise with our movie producers so that we can produce quality movie, because they tend to have a problem with the movies we produce in Ghana as well. So that, I mean, if we are able to produce most of our movies based on the creative ways that we produce, perhaps it will improve the quality. But there's a cultural, a negative perception in our culture that creative writing won't give you money, won't put food on your table. And everybody also wants something that's, I mean, you can't go to the university for 4 years, finish and still be struggling. and not get a job, not be able to put food on your table. So they will still go in for the other courses, and it's always pushed aside as something that you do as a hobby. But I try my best. Not long ago, I had to invite Mr. Hefstein to one of my creative class so that he has a talk with them and tell them what he himself has benefited as a creative writer. And it was an interesting discussion we had. So these are some of the things I do to create an awareness for the students to appreciate creative writing, and those who have the gifts to continue in that field. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about what you said about having Mr. Hefstein talk to your students, because as you were talking, I was thinking about that, because I know a few writers, even here in Ghana. Well, there are few, but they are making a lot of money. And if we could get them, Ghanaians, we don't like talking about money, but if we could get a few of them, we don't like talking about the money that we are making, you know, because everybody else will then start coming to you, knocking on your door. Yeah. But if we could get a few of them, as Mr. Hefstein did, talking to others, you know, acting as mentors, to tell them that, look, I wrote this book and this is how much I fetched from it. This is how much I made abroad. You know, one of the publishers here, she doesn't, she concentrates on the market outside, and she's making it big time, you know, for her writers. So sometimes writers too, you have to know where to take your manuscript, because I've come across books already published, which are so riddled with mistakes that, I mean, I just wonder who did this? Who did this? Which publishers? Some of them from publishers, most of them from people who do, they are publishing themselves. So it's one of the things, you know, if you do something, if you write something, you need somebody to polish it. You need somebody to, no matter how good you think, you may have an excellent story, but maybe your language needs a little bit of, you know, straightening. And so if you should be able to invest in all those things as well, because believe me, if you come out with something and it's well packaged and well edited and well designed, and it goes out there and the story is excellent, it will sell itself. We all know Peggy Opong, the school, the young ladies, in those days, Peggy Opong, everybody wanted to read Peggy Opong. She was writing for that market. She was writing for that market. So if you take, and she was doing it well. So that is the thing. People are here and they are making it, but they need to be taught that you can make it. They need to be taught that you can make it. And they also need to be taught how to make it. So that's an excellent thing that, you know, you did. And I must congratulate you for that. The writers who are making it should let their voice be heard. That's what I think. Thank you. Any other person?
Yeah, moderator.
Yes.
Yes.
I think
Madam Moderator, can I please come in?
Okay.
Yes.
Mariam, a minute. I think Mr. Gomita wants to say something. After he says something,
I have
yes,
spoken.
please,
Mariam hasn't, so.
No, like okay, I was okay. No, I just wanted, I thought you were commenting on what Philomena said. So I wanted you to comment, then I bring Mariam in and then maybe ask her to,
yes,
if she has something else to add.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to commend Philomena for that effort in inviting Mr. Hefstein to her class. Again, we are talking about the environment. How did Philomena get to know about Hefstein? It was GAW. They met for the first time when we featured Mr. Hefstein as the personality of the month. I forgot the particular month. That's how they met. that is part of creation of environment. Are we able to do those things ourselves, to be able to meet regularly, people getting to know, networking? Is all part of the ecosystem that we are talking about. And beyond the economics, are there, or are we able to write to impact on people, that when we see the people, we say that, look, my book has made a change on a certain community. My book has made a change in a certain society. Are we able to identify some of these things and comment on them? That is moving the discussion from the economics to another level. So I will leave it at this point for French assistant to come in, then we can come back to this one.
Okay, Mariam.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Prez. Mr. Prez, when you mentioned that, are we able to impact with writing? Are we able to transform lives? A thought just came to mind. I was actually already thinking about it, that when we talk about economics, who are some of the writers who are making it? Most of them are the motivational speakers in this country. Motivational speakers are making it because when I buy a motivational book and I read it, I absorb, I meditate, somehow, even if it's just a keyword, it gets to transform my life. So most of our creative writers should emphasize clearly or be specific with what they are writing, what lesson is in it for the reader. I was also thinking that economically, yes, you cannot take reading out of writing. We all know the influence of reading on writing. So how are we making reading more fun for our readers as creative writers? What are some of the things that should motivate somebody to buy your book? What are some of the things that should propel somebody, a student, probably a GHS student or an SHS student, to buy your book and read? These are some of the things that you have to look at. The packaging, just like Mrs. Ohui, the moderator, just mentioned. The writing itself, how is it going? How good is the writing? What is the quality of what you are producing? These are some of the things that will urge someone, because like you, Mrs. Ohui mentioned earlier, you take some books and you read probably the prologue or the epilogue and you just put it down. You cannot continue reading it because some of the wordings in there are that bad. So quality is of utmost importance when we're talking of economics regarding our writing, the financial gains regarding our writing. We have to produce quality books, quality works, and then it will motivate our readers to read on. We also have to come up with strategies to make reading fun for those who are not really interested in reading. Because I have some friends who will tell me they are not really interested in reading, and probably that do not even urge them on to buy books for their own kids, because they themselves are not interested in reading. Why would they even go onto the market or to a bookshop and buy books for their ward? So, but if reading is if it's made attractive, if it's made fun, I believe writers will have readers who will patronize their books as well. Yeah, so.
I want to comment on, I want to make a couple of comments on what Mariam just said. About the motivational speakers. I had a young lady on Legon campus. I think she was doing, I forget, one of the sciences or something. And then I was trying to get her to read. I said, oh, do you like reading? said, no. I only read motivational books. I said, oh, okay. Then I said, I invited her over to my office one day. And then when she came, I gave her a book, a storybook. I said, look, please, just read the first chapter. I'm working on a letter. And so whilst I'm doing this letter, just read the first chapter. By then I would have finished with the letter, then we can chat, we can talk about whatever it is you came to this office for. So I'm doing my letter and I'm looking at her from the corner of my eye and she's turning the pages. She finished chapter 1. She's turning the pages. She finished chapter 2. She's turning the pages. So, after a while, when she got about page 30 or so, I just said, oh, I'm so sorry. I let you read more than, I'm sorry, I haven't finished that. I'm sorry, I was apologizing. And she said, oh, it's okay. Until it's okay. Can I take the book with me when I'm leaving? So I said, but I thought you said you only read motivational books. Then she said, it's interesting. This book is interesting. So, it was all a deliberate thing. So I sat down with her and we discussed, it was about a very assertive girl, right from page 1. She was able, she went to the station, to the STC station, and they had, her advance tickets. People came, and the first bus was delayed. So the second bus, the passengers in the second bus joined the first bus, and there was a whole this thing. This young lady was able to get the manager, straighten things out. And I told her that was assertiveness. And that when you read your motivational books, they tell you to be assertive. And here you are seeing somebody being assertive. And we discussed, we sort of discussed the book. And I was telling her that, look, motivational books, I don't have anything against them. Actually, I do. But you can also get the lessons from storybooks, novels. You can also get, here, I said, what did this girl do? She stood her ground. And a young lady in her early 20s, she was able to get the manager of STC to come down and sort things out. Assertiveness. You don't have to read it in a motivational book to let you know how you can be assertive. And sometimes, especially for the young ones, we must know what interests them. Everybody knows that I have a passion for reading and getting kids to read. So in my church, one of my members told me, my son, he doesn't like reading. I said, oh, is that so? Okay. And Harry he wouldn't mix with people, not a very friendly child. He was about 10. And then I was wondering how to go about it. I asked his father, what's he interested in? He said, I don't know. Then one day, I always have books in my car. You go into my car, there are books for all ranges, levels, everything. Then Harry came up to me. Until I saw a Roald Dahl book in your car. Can I have it? Then I said in my head, I've got you. I said, oh, do you like his books? He said, yes. And I had a whole series, 7. So I started bringing them to him, 2 at a time. And after that, we started chatting. What do you like? So the things he was interested in, I made it a point to look out for books, children's books for his level on those topics. His father can't thank me enough. He's not in the secondary school. At that time, I was in my class 3 or 4. And he became a reader. And so every Sunday, we used to exchange. I would bring him books on Sundays at church. And so then I started with his younger sister. And what I'm trying to say is that, sometimes they don't want to read because they are not interested in what you're pushing down their throats. They want, the topic doesn't interest them. If a child is interested in football, go out and look for books on football. If a child is interested in whatever it is they are interested in, start off with that. And then, and if possible, discuss their stories with them and let them know what to look out for when they are reading. And if you do that, they will start reading. And when you start reading, it's for life. You continue. Where I know a young lady who told her uncle was going abroad, and he said, what can I get for you? There was a time Harry Potter had just come out. I said, books, Harry Potter books. And he said, as for books, we always get them for you. I was expecting to say dresses, shoes, or something. You know, it gets to a time when they themselves, they prioritize books. So it depends. Somebody said something about marketing. You have to market the books. You have to know how to market. You have to know what to write and who to write it for and how to write it for them. So these are some of the things I want you to think about.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Mariska, adding to Auntie Ohui, to add to what you just said, I think that one of the major challenge, you just identified it, is that we always force the children to read what we think is right for them. Yeah. So we should let them decide on what they want to read. We can just be coaches to guide them to the right test. And then the marketing is also very important because I think sometimes they just don't know where to get the books they want. They are not aware of where to get the books. So writers should also make it a point to market their books very well. Maybe it's not their duty, it's the publisher's duty perhaps, but they should try and make sure that the books are marketed very well so that everybody seems to know that this is what I want. If I want a book for my teenagers, I can talk of this author or that author. If I want a book on this, I can just mention this author and then get the books for the kids to read. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned about marketing. That's even, I think, the topic we'll talk about in the next panel discussion. It is very difficult to market in Ghana. Even if you have a publisher who takes your books, do they put in the amount of work they actually are supposed to do to market your books? You know, you hear of book signings all over America for one author's book. Maybe a new author that has come out, but the publisher makes an effort. But here, they take your books, put them in shops, and at the end of the month, they go and see what has been sold. But aggressive marketing is actually what we need in this country, you know, because of a lot of disappointment with publishing. A lot of people are doing self-publishing. Now they are going around the churches, the schools, trying to sell the books and all that. And sometimes very little returns considering the legwork you put in it. So, and then of course, people want books for 5 CDs and 10 CDs highest, you know, even though the book may actually cost you 50 or 60 if you factor in every second, every penny you spent to get that book out, you know, and people don't want to pay that amount for a book for children. Let me see, an £8 book in England for a parent is cheap, but convert it, it is 40 CDs. How many Ghanaian parents will spend 40 CDs on a book for children? You know, so we also have to look at, sometimes it's not the author's fault. But one thing I must say is we must encourage authors to make reading conducive, produce books that the children want, stories they want to read about. You know, they have enough lectures on the educational books. They have enough books being written on sexual reproduction and teenage pregnancies, and that's not what they want. They want mysteries that children are solving problems. You know, children are having adventures, children are going through calamities and coming out and being successful and all that. Too much of our books for the youth are infused with religion, and the children are already being forced to go to church. When they reach the age of maybe around 15 to 19, parents have to drag them to church. And then they find novels, and the novels are also talking about the same thing. They need adventure, they need experience, they need things to make them laugh, things to make them identify with. So it is us also as Writers Association to get the message out that these are the things children want. And once you capture a child's reading habits, especially when you give them the books they want, they won't stray from it. They will start looking down what we call the bend down boutique, trying to find books that they can read, you know, and those books secondhand, you can get them for 5 CDs and things, but we have to nurture their reading habits before they get to that stage, you know, like if you all remember, those of us who are our age, a book would come in the classroom, this is in the 70s, will come to the classroom and it will go through every student in the class. You're waiting in line for the book to read. And when someone starts telling you the ending, everybody shouts at them because they also want to read and get to the ending. Now we don't have children queuing up to read a storybook, you know, because they are not being written about. And then most of the books we get that are very, very cheap are handed down from the Western world. So the things that are happening there, children here don't experience. They can't identify with, you know. So we really have to teach writers what students want, what young readers want, what the very young want, you know. So it's, that's where we get the ecosystem, because we're giving the children what they want, putting them in an environment that they want to be in, curled up reading a book, you know, conducive environment and all that. So it all works hand in hand. So really we need to, there are some people who are very good in writing, but they want to do A is an apple and they draw an apple, B is a bear, they draw a bear, but they don't put a story around the bear or a story around the apple. Maybe you see an apple with a worm in it. So then you develop a story around it. So even though it's A for apple, that page could have a whole story on the apple and the worm. You know, B is for, what animal do we have here that is B? You know, or even N is for akrantie or grass cutter. So now you give a little 2 paragraphs of the experience of a grass cutter, how he goes in a hole, how he hides from people and things, and you develop a story from this. So they're learning the alphabet. They have the story about the animal. They're learning about the habitat of the animal. You're combining all this. So you're making that an eco-friendly book as well. So that's something that we should do to give the children something they desire.
Thank you very much, Mariska. Any comments?
Someone's hand is up.
Yes. Can I please come in?
Okay. Agatha also.
Agatha, is your hand up? Yes, Agatha, please. Agatha, please unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
please, can you hear me?
Yes,
good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, we can hear you.
I've been enjoying what has been going on so far. And I have a couple of points here. Following as right from where Mariska just stopped. I was also going to talk about writing about interesting topics. One problem I have with our writers is that there isn't enough research about the topics that they write about. For instance, like she was just saying, if you put A is an apple and there was a worm and you develop the story. Our people just write very basic things. But I remember that when we're reading the Mills and Boone and all those things, a writer would take time to describe somewhere like Spain or the Caribbean, where people have gone for holidays. And you and I know that Mills and Boone is girl meets boy, there's conflict and then it's resolved. But the setting and the tension and everything that goes and makes the story interesting. And as she was just saying, it passes from one person to the other in the classroom. So we are all okay. And so if our writers will invest a little more into research, for instance, we know that guys are, or the youth are very interested in football. Which writer has sat down to really research into football, maybe taking one of those icons, international icons or somebody, and written a story about them, an adventurous story that will be interesting to the youth that are reading, and not just the usual one of giving biographical information, no, but weaving a story around it. So my point still remains that a lot of our people, it's supposed to be creative writing. A lot of our people are not producing creative writing enough because there's lack of research. Now, the issue of our films, making films from books, is something that I've mentioned before to Socrates Sappho. One time I met him at a book fair and I mentioned it to him. One time at our meeting, he was also there and I mentioned it to him that normally a lot of films are made from books. But you see, our problem here is that our people like to make a quick turnover. So supposing somebody had a very good book and then wanted maybe some Allotey book or something, wanted a writer, a filmmaker to produce it, you may find that because the writer does not have money to put in it, they will want to go and write some wishy-washy story themselves and then produce it for people to laugh, and that is the end. So maybe GAW should look at that seriously, engage as institution to institution, how they can get these people who are serious about film production to look at the good stories that we have to develop them into films. Now, the environment, creating a conducive environment, even for them also to want to read. At the just ended book fair, Agbenyega Publications had a story by a young girl, Cacophony, and they engaged with the Environmental Protection Agency. So I think their boss was even there at the launch, and they were talking about, you see, so if we want to be able to bring awareness, then the writers must engage some of these institutions also. In fact, ordinarily, they should even maybe sponsor in such a way that the book can come out. But you know that because it's not a beauty pageant or some such thing, they will give all types of excuses. But there's no harm in trying. You may get somebody who is broad-minded enough to be able to push something through. Now, I think also that we'll probably have to be talking to, that's GAW, to teachers, even from the primary level. You see, we have, we don't have the habit of our children writing, journaling, putting down their thoughts. And so we find that there's no depth to our children. Recently, Publishers Association, in commemoration of 45th anniversary, said wanted people to write stories. They should choose their own topics. Ohui is my witness. And the stories that came are so from JHS students and from SHA students. I mean, it's not just even a matter of grammar or anything, but there is no creativity. There's no, it's something, and you would expect that people would have gone, into a deeper analysis or writing or more creativity thereabout, but it's not there because the environment is not, there for them to be journaling. But if we could get teachers who are resourceful, it may be in the, the private schools or something, to get them to let children take maybe one exercise book and journal their thoughts. Journal. You find that once they are able to journal their thoughts, and sometimes some of these pent-up feelings and all that, it comes out into the journal, and then that makes them writers. And then, of course, they'll be readers. We've all heard about Anne Frank's diary, and it is still making waves. So we have a long way to go to bring all these people on board. And then my last point is that I remember Form 1, 69, 70. We had a period on the timetable for reading, the class prefect will go and bring a box of supplementary readers, about 10 titles, 6 copies each. So going around the classroom, everybody will have. So when it is time for the next session, so by the time we finish the term, you'd have read about 6 or more books. So there's an intentional, intentionality about it to get people to read, that they'll just sit down in the classroom and read what is not textbooks. And that goes a long way. When I was teaching in Kumasi in the secondary school some time ago, I even tried it with Fonwa. I got a school to get some GPC book. I've forgotten the title, and we're reading it in class. So these are intentional things that need to be done so that we can get the children to be interested, because some may be interested, but it hasn't been open to them. Boy, who wanted him to read. It was because he wasn't getting something that was interesting. When he got it, he was okay with it. So there has to be some real people who may board and who have the interest of others at heart. Even get people to sponsor a certain publication. In these institutions, these companies, to sponsor a certain publication and get children to read, organize events around them. Just like the, what do you call him? The Harry Potter thing. Many publishers sent her away. But when the marketing people at the last publisher put in a lot of effort and made a lot of hype, look at what it did. So that is where we are at. And I think that there's still a long way to go, but all is not lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Agatha. Thank you. There really is a long way to go. And I like that you are still optimistic that all is not lost.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you are optimistic. But I agree with you. There is a long way to go, because I remember in the 60s, my father was a teacher, and all of us, with the exception of one of my brothers, were all readers. The one I come after, he was a strict science student. And I remember once I was watching a film, and I called him to come and watch the film on TV. And he said, no, he's reading a book. And that the book is so interesting that where he had gotten to, he couldn't tear himself away from the book. And I was saying to myself, but the book is there. You can come and watch the film and go and continue the book. Because after the film, it's like it was on TV. If it's gone, it's gone. But as I said, my father was a teacher, so he knew, and he made a conscious effort to get us all to be reading, and it paid off. So the environment, we have to get, as adults, we have to start them very young and get them to read and get them books they are interested in. And it's become so, like everything is so exam, that they think that when they are reading, they are taking time off, which they should be used for doing academic stuff. But if you tell them, if you link up this thing that, look, it's rather going to broaden your mind, but whatever you are reading, it's easier to sink in. I always tell the story of A-level. We were doing Mind Boy or something, set in South Africa. And then in geography, they asked me a question, they asked us a question at A-level about the climate in South Africa. My mind went to the Mind Boy and how they used to get up cold in the mornings and this thing. And it helped me to answer my geography questions. So if we are sort of able to link up some of the things we read with academics, and as Agatha said, research. People just think that writing for children is easy. They put down some cat went to this thing and this. It's not, you have to engage them. I had somebody called, asked me to engage with kindergartners to read a book with them. So I had this book about cats and dogs, the cat and the dog and how they were. So I started off, how many of you have cats at home? Then they raised their hands, tell me about your cat. And they started talking. And then how many of you have dogs? And then you didn't even read. We're talking about cats, dogs, we spent most of the time, no, I did read, but like, because I had prepared them, they talked about their pets. So when when I was reading about the antics of the cat and dog, they could relate. And sometimes when you are reading to children at that age, you can modify, because they can read, you can modify the text a bit for them to find themselves somewhere in the story, so that then they get more interested. But if you go and, read things or ask them to read things they're not interested in, they are lost. You've lost them. So we need to know the kinds of books or topics they are interested in. We need to research whilst we are writing for them, and we need whichever level, so that the books would find the market. Any more comments? Philomena, you look like you have something to say.
Yes, Madam Moderator. When it comes to we setting up the young ones to take up reading and then writing as they grow up, I believe one of the underlying factors that can also motivate them is when we become their critics. If you're a mother, if you're a parent, and you are an avid reader, so probably you could also write, or a teacher. When this, just as Auntie Agatha was saying, when children are encouraged to journal their thoughts and they bring it to you, the teacher, the mother, there should be some sort of encouragement. Critique the work for constructive purposes. Because I remember there was this time in my life in secondary school, somebody approached me to partake in this Macmillan writing competition. I thought I was in secondary school Form 2. I thought I did about 72 pages of a story that I came up with. I was living with a guardian at that time, and I felt that he could help me go through, review it. He went through, after days, he called me back to tell me that I had no story. He told me point blank that, Mariam, you don't have a story, just trash this. I was so heartbroken. I was so devastated. I couldn't even continue the story again, and I just had to wrap it up. I sent it. Actually, the man that approached me to enter into the competition, Araba, believed that I could make it, at least, even if not to the finals, I could be shortlisted. But myself, I was demoralized. I couldn't bring myself to think that I'll even make the list. And it translated into my finished work. So I couldn't write. Until now, anytime I want to write a whole story, probably a novel, it goes, the thought gets back to me. Do you really have a story to tell? Will your story be encouraging enough? Will it attract the kind of people that you want? Will you really tell a story? So I believe that when it comes to the home, our parents, our guardians, our teachers, those who we look up to for support, they should also be encouraging. And when they are critiquing our work, they should do it constructively. They should be more empathetic towards us, because young ones are young ones. This research that we are talking about, how many young ones who want to write now even have the idea that if I want to write anything, I have to research about. We don't have that idea, but you as a parent, you as a teacher, you know what writing entails. So I believe when we want to set up our little ones, our young ones, to pick up writing, pick up reading, we should be constructive in the critique and the reviews of their work as well. That is about what I have to say.
Yeah.
I also want to mention that when it comes to a conducive Okay, so the topic for the discussion is creating a conducive ecosystem for creative writing. So there should be a creator if we are to create. Who is creating in the first place? Is it the writer creating the atmosphere, the conducive ecosystem? Is it government? Is it who is creating? We should address, we should be emphatic. Who is creating that conducive atmosphere? Because I believe that as a writer, your creativity starts with you. Your conducive environment will start with you. If you, the writer, you don't have a healthy mind in the first place, you don't have a healthy environment in the first place, you are bound to produce something that would not be, will be shady, something that would not really meet the market needs or really meet the needs of your readers. So as a writer, the onus lies on you first. What are the things that will make you a good writer? What are the things that will make your writing good enough for your readers? You need a healthy mind in the first place. You need a healthy soul. You need to be in a place that when you write, it may not be perfect, but it should make an impact in the lives of people. And I believe that if you have a healthy mind, and if you take part in activities or in exercises that make your creative or bolster your creativity, I believe that you'll be able to create that conducive ecosystem, because the conducive ecosystem is not only about the external factors. It is not only about government or political policies. It is not only about your space that you do your write-up, but it embodies everything. It embodies you, the writer, the writing itself, the writing project itself, then the environment that you find yourself in. So you, the writer, what are some of the things that you do for yourself that will bring your creativity out? Because creativity is innate, but if you do not exercise it, if you do not maximize it, if you do not bring it out, it will be dormant. Everybody is creative, everybody is talented, but how are you yourself making use of this creativity? How are you leveraging on some of the things around you? Because some people's creativity come about when probably they are seated in the quiet. Some people like tranquility. Others' creativity is not about the serene atmosphere. Others' creativity are boosted in crowds. It will surprise you the number of people who will go to the beach side and their creativity will just be ignited. There are some people who would rather go to the market square and their creativity will be ignited. But it all boils down to a healthy mind. Your mind has to be sane. If you are distracted, if there are things that distract you, if you are not sound in your mind, it will take a lot more effort for your creativity to come out. So the ecosystem talks about not just our external environment, but inner self, inner environment as well, all the elements that come together to produce a good work for the writer. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mariam. I think we haven't even considered that aspect. We are thinking of the external, but yes, we really do have internally. We have to be at a place where we can write, a place in our minds, a serene place in our minds, in our souls, where we can write. Thank you very much for also bringing that out. Any other comments? Agatha, is your hand up again?
Hello. Yeah.
Okay.
Commenting on the last point that Philomena spoke about, it was very insightful listening to Elizabeth Irene Beatty the other day on TV about how she's a very busy person, and yet she manages to write because she has created the environment whereby she has divided her day. So she gets up in the middle of the night or some such time and writes, because being a creative person, the story is there begging to be written. So as Philomena just said, you yourself too must create your environment, enabling environment to enable you to get the story out. You don't always have to look at the external. As for the external sources, because even you're behind your house or around your place, you may get some ways in calling the faithful to prayer or somebody blasting music or whatever. So you may not even get a really very quiet environment, but you must write. So it's very important that you yourself also find your own time for creating and writing. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. What I would like to add is that you need to be committed, because when you have so many things occupying your mind, then you really need to have your own quiet time or your space to write. So you need to be committed as a writer to have that ecosystem to write. And sometimes it helps when you have something like a timetable where you have a fixed, you make time, 2 hours, 3 hours to write. The one of our book fairs, there was this writer, her name has escaped me, and she said because she has to go to work early in the morning, her time for writing is from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. So she sleeps early, wake up at 2 a.m., write till about 4, and then sleep off a little bit, and then by 6, she gets up again to go to work. So you need to be committed as a writer to make the ecosystem, to have a conducive environment to write and then come out with something beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that also reminds me of the Canadian writer I was talking about, Kevin Major. He said, I think he writes, I think 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every day. He does it full time. And everybody in the house knows that unless you are going to die in the next minute, you are not to disturb him between 6 and 10 a.m. because that is when he writes. That is when he has, those are the hours that he has put down for writing. And so nobody is allowed to disturb him. And so you have to let others also know. And like he was even saying his wife, he had told his wife that unless she was dying or she was going to die in the next minute, or she was going to die before 10 a.m., she was not allowed to come and disturb him. You know, so others must be made aware of also your environment, your eco, those things, so that they also respect it. I think that's also a very good point. Do we have, Agatha, is your hand up again? Agatha, is your hand up again? No, okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I wanted us to also consider online books. In Ghana, it looks like we focus so much on our hard copies, which is very good, but the way technology is moving, we have to catch up. There are softwares online that you can have storybooks. You pay, you read, you get to the page where you are enjoying the story so much, and then it goes off, you must pay again. And then, so these are avenues of making money out of the work you do. So I think that as authors, writers or creative writers, they have to consider online publishing as well, online books, and then have a way of selling their books online, because that's what most of the young ones are going in for. They would rather get something, save it on their phone, read it when they are in the bus or waiting in the hospital or the bank. They don't like carrying books around them and all that. So we should also consider that. Thank you.
I think that the problem with that is a lot of people don't understand the technology. People, BBC, born before computers, they don't understand the technology. And the writers also don't trust the technology. They don't know how they can collect their money and all those things. So GAW has now got a platform like that, for digital books. And I think gradually, slowly, it will catch up. We are hoping that we, the BBC people, will also, actually, it's catching on. At least I find myself, I go on the net, and then now it's audiobooks. They start reading the book, and then they stop, and then you have to go and buy if you are interested. Yeah. And I said, oh, that's interesting. So I think, it's a sign of the times. Gradually, we'll also get there. We'll also get there, Yes. I think we've been able to do something interesting this afternoon. Has anybody else got anything to say?
Please, can I come in?
Mariska, yeah, please do.
Okay. One group of people that can also help writers is the media. The media, I believe that when the media puts a lot of spotlight on writing and activities of writers, there will be that recognition that we are talking about. But it seems because the writing itself doesn't bring enough, when we are launching our books, when writers are launching their books, they are not able to invite enough media, or they are not able to invite the sort of media that will take coverage of their activity and then just disseminate it for almost everybody to get to know about. And sometimes we as writers think that, oh, once a media publishes it on probably on the internet, they can do the sharing by ourselves. But if the media liaises with probably GAW or with some actors, some writers, I believe that there will be that kind of recognition that writing or writers need for their work. So the media also must play a part if writing has to be conducive, and if more people will want to go into writing, the media has to come in and help support and promote writing and writers. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Mariska, I was wondering, anything else to say before we wrap up?
Well, the main thing is to, as the topic says, a conducive ecosystem, a conducive environment for writing. And if we start making it conducive from the schools and then into our homes, like one writer said, she started writing in her kitchen. She didn't have a whole study or a library, but she made sure that that corner that she sat to write was always neat, everything in order. So when she sat down, she knew she was going to write. Now we can also create a writing environment within our home. And we need to encourage the young ones at home to have a reading period. Right now, the way the school system is and the times, they don't even have time allocated for reading. They just do their lessons and they go home. They don't really have a reading period. So you as a parent, I know parents have so much on their hands. They leave by 4 a.m. and are coming home by 7. But at least the weekends, it's not every funeral or every wedding you have to attend. Have a reading period with your kids. Let them stay in and maybe just an hour where they have to read and tell you about what they've read. Now that will create a sort of, and then reward them afterwards. Don't make it as though it's a punishment. discuss with you, give them a dictionary for their birthday, give them a thesaurus for their birthday. Those two things, they should always be in every home, so that when they find a word, you can always say to them, well, what is the opposite of this word that you've just read, and they have to go and look. And then that gives them a wider vocabulary. So you're also creating an environment for creativity, because now they're not afraid to put things down. They're not afraid to use words that they don't understand, because they've had the opportunity to look it up. We can't leave everything to teachers. As parents, we should also do our bit. And like I said, making it conducive is also from the home. So let's try and also encourage that. So that's what I have to say.
Okay. The schools do have a reading period, and some schools adhere to it. In fact, we went to Asin in the central region, and what some of the schools were doing was that they were they had those reading, they call it the early bird, for kids who came to school early. By 7:30, the teacher would be in and would provide those who were there books to read. So those who wanted to read would read. And we found out from the Ghana Education Service that they do have a reading period of the timetable, but what happens at the schools is different. Some of the schools would rather use it for academic work, more teaching. They wouldn't let the kids read, but other schools were following it strictly. They had books, and the few books that they had, they would make available to the children. But so this is just to say they do have the reading period, but whether the teachers or the school was using the period for reading, that's another whole story. I guess
Yes. Some of the teachers say they don't even have the books for reading. They don't even have the books for the classwork, let alone for reading. So I know one teacher who actually uses her own money to buy one reading book a year, and she tries to get as many as she can, and that's from her own pocket. Another one, because they say free SHS or free whatever, they can't even, let's say, ask the children to go and buy the book, because some parents will turn around and say the government is supposed to provide. But I know one teacher in a private school that has a book, and as the teacher comes in, she tells as the parent comes in, she says, look, this is not on the curriculum, but I want to help your children to read. So this book, if you can buy it, this is where it is being sold. We will be using it in our free period. And most parents understand when you approach them in that way, but the previous way of, hey, this book is 5 CDs, all of you should buy it. I mean, that was how some teachers went about it. And then it caused a lot of uproar because they said government is supposed to provide. But we have to let the parents understand that what the government supplies is not enough. You also have to put your hand in your pocket if you want a great straight A student, if you want a student who can read. It is not only depending on government books, Then also we want the government to really look at quality books that have gone through NACA and approve them as supplementary readers that not necessarily have to be bought by government because they don't have money. They always don't have money, but at least get the books on the list of approved books because they've gone through the examination, they've gone through everything to make sure they are quality. And then once that approval list comes out, schools can decide to pick one of those books as their reading free period book, They shouldn't make it difficult for those things to be done, So there's so many factors that don't make it conducive. And these are some of them. Make it too expensive and and all that. So, and then you put obstacles in the way of the writers and everything like that. So we hope things will change so that the environment will really. Thank you.
Agatha.
Yeah, I think that maybe GAW will have to think about resourcing Oswald Okaite. He's been doing very, very well single-handedly, getting children to be interested in reading, getting celebrities, society, the people who matter in society to read to them. Probably we should have a system that will look at encouraging reading nationwide. You know, very, very intensive effort, because we are talking, it isn't, these are not things we have not talked about before or discussed before. But if we could get somebody to do the legwork from region to region and things like that, I think that some effect, some impact will be made. And talking about parents, having people to intentionally read. I heard once about a man in Tema who insisted that before the children went to school every day, they should have read about 2 chapters or so of their story. So you go and do your chores in the home, you read before you go out to school. And some parents who, even as they don't have time, when they are coming back home from work and with the children, will let the children read in the car, read aloud with them and ask questions, and they are discussing the books. So it's a question of, we don't have time, we don't have the resources, but what can we do, you know, to create the environment? What can we do to let the children love to read? And maybe GAW will also have to aggressively reach out to parents, maybe PTA meetings. Parents themselves, they some of them don't really appreciate the fact that children should read, because they themselves have not read. After university, they put books somewhere. And so if parents also get the idea that the onus lies on them to make sure that their children become all-rounders by reading, selling it to them right there at PTA meetings and things, I think these can go a long way. These steps can go a long way to help. Thank you.
Yeah, GAW does have a project called GAWSOP, which is supposed to go out to all the schools. When they started the green and gold, it sort of put a little bit of a halt on what we were doing. And then COVID also came in. Now we were going out to the schools in all the regions and helping the teachers to set up reading clubs within their schools. The intention was, with the Memorandum of Understanding, Ministry of Education, was that we would have books that the students would be able to buy within the school and then have them in their reading clubs. And that was where we wanted to promote the books by members of GAW. But then things changed. They were not allowed to sell books. Then COVID came in, so we couldn't go on the outreach, which had been planned, laid out, everything and all that. So right now we have reduced the going out to all the regions, but we've rather divided the regions into zones. And we are going to start with Greater Accra because it's closer to us. And then the zone ones will pick out schools from deprived areas and then do our outreach with them for reading and all that. So we are asking anybody listening who has any books they want to donate to send the books to the GAW office, because when we go out, we want to also have books to give them. We can't set up a reading club without books. And so maybe you have some books there you'd like to give. The whole thing has been drawn up, and we are actually waiting for a conducive environment for us to start again with what we had planned. So that is something that we are looking at. But we do have individual GAW members who go out to do their private outreach, and we also give them support, and sometimes give them links to head teachers that they can contact and all that. But all this is capital intensive. You need sponsors to sponsor your fuel to go around to sponsor your getting the books, because you have to buy the books from the authors to go and give as donations. So we also have a prison outreach that has been set up. We're waiting to put that in place so that we go to the hostels and then have reading classes with the young prisoners, so that when by the time they come out, they should be literate. And so these are things that we do have in place, but then the environment has not been conducive for us to continue at the moment. So it's just about picking up.
Please mute your microphones, please. Mariska, sorry. Please mute your microphones.
Yes, so that is what we have planned to do, and we hope it will take off very soon. So.
Thank you. Agatha. Agatha.
Hello?
Yeah, Agatha. Your hand
Yes.
is up again.
No, not again.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So,
Auntie, please, can I come in a minute?
Yeah, please do.
My very last one. Okay, so when Auntie Mariska was speaking, I thought of something, and I realized that it may be of help to the nation as a whole. We all understand the importance religion plays in our lives, especially when it comes to our churches. Most Ghanaians, if they are not Muslims, then they are Christians, though they don't even go to church. But it only gives you the understanding that when it comes to churches and their members, most times people end up doing the bidding of their pastors or their church leaders. So why don't we leverage on that? We have been to the schools. Now let's go to the churches. Let's speak to the heads of the churches. They all understand the importance of reading and what it will do to their for their congregation, especially when it comes to their children's services. So we can also look. We can also take our outreach over there. Maybe we'll be given some few minutes, an hour or less, to speak to the children, speak to the congregation, especially to the parents, to inculcate the habit of reading into the lives of their wards, and also to encourage parents to drive the importance of reading into their wards. Because yes, we are busy. Yes, parents are busy nowadays, but parents end up spending more time on their phones than they do with their books these days. So that is what our children are seeing. The child will emulate anything that he or she sees the parents do. My sister and I emulated our mother reading books, and that is how come we became avid readers. But now my son sees me on my phone all the time, he doesn't care whether I am reading a novel or not on my phone. All he knows is that mommy is on the phone. So when it comes to our children also imbibing the habit of reading, I believe that parents should be let in the know that whatever your child sees you do is what the child will take up. So let's go to the churches. GAW, we can do this. Let's go to the churches, speak to the heads. And from there, I believe we will get somewhere. We will get somewhere. If not to the churches, if not only to the churches, to the mosques, these religious houses will do us a lot of good if we try out there as well.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I come in?
Yes.
I forgot, just before the COVID, in fact, way before the COVID, I started a book library in my church for the junior youth and the youth. And it is so heartwarming to see that the children are reading. So they borrow the books and they bring them the next Sunday, and it was the COVID that sort of scuttled it. So we haven't actually gone back into it, but I saw that there was a hunger for reading. So sometimes it's the availability of the books, and if they are interesting, the children will read them. And then we have tried to, I'm handling the junior youth, where I'm trying to teach them some skills, crocheting, and then asking them, what if you are not interested in that, what do you want? Some people say they are interested in writing. Just yesterday, somebody brought a story to me, and I read it and I commented on it. So we should also engage, as the last speaker just said, engage the children in our churches. And if the parents are not doing it, if the organization is not doing it, individually, as we reach out to them, they will come. They will gather around you when they see that you have interesting books to give to them, or you have something interesting to say. So it's a good point there. The churches, the religious organizations, we should be ambassadors there to get these children to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Agatha. I guess everybody has exhausted whatever it is they want to say. Mr. Agbenyega, do you have anything to say to Mr. Agbenyega, do you have anything to say before we bring the session to an end?
No, just to say that your discussions have been insightful. The contributions have been taken note of. I heard a lot of GAW. And I kept on writing.
That's why I asked you, because I was going to say GAW. I had a lot of GAW, so
I've taken down.
Try to.
The notes. I know
okay, good.
I will always sell GAW, so you know.
Yeah. Mariska did.
I wanted to hear from the president too. Yes, she did a great job.
Agatha is my advisory board member, so when I'm hearing heads, I have to take notes. I've done that. I know Agatha says I have to go to
the churches.
Because I have to go to the teachers,
the parents.
I have to resource Oswald to do more.
Exactly.
So my board member, I've taken note of that. We'll see what we
can.
Yes,
sir.
Yes, thank you very much.
I think we've had a very interesting discussion.
Interesting, yes.
A lot of things have come out. Some of the components of the ecosystem, like I hadn't thought about them, you know, and I think we've all done well to bring out the salient points. It's not only the place, the space. We need peace of mind. We need policies. We need support. We even need, most especially, the readers. And we also need to hone our craft, polish what we are doing so that we deliver what the readers want. And when we deliver what the readers want, they will come back for more. And then it will become a win-win situation. So I want to thank you all for coming and for participating. I want to thank GAW for giving us the opportunity. Thank you very much, and especially our panelists. In fact, we're all panelists here, because everybody, I like the interactiveness of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Everybody feeling free to voice out their thoughts and their contributions. Thank you so very much for making my job easy.
And thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you too.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You know your job, and so you've given us a whole lot of things to think about.
Yes, we have also Mr. Menu Hepstein.
Moderating something. I said,
Mr. Menu Hepstein has been with us from the beginning, and Mr. Dechi has also been with us, and Sima Elimas. They have been with us from the very, very beginning. So we want to thank them also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.